Good evening, everyone, and welcome to In the Loop. My name is Debbie Cavness, and I'm the Alumni Director here at SUNY ESF. Tonight, we will be joined by a number of our landscape architecture alumni, and they come from us from a variety of different fields, so it's going to be really interesting to see their path and how they got to where they are. We will be opening this up for questions at the end, so I want to mention one thing first, that we are live streaming this, and it will be available later on YouTube as part of our YouTube broadcast on our Alumni Association channel. So if you'd like to ask questions and are watching on YouTube and are logged in with your YouTube account or Gmail account, you can just type your question in the comments section or chat section, and we'll be able to see those, and I can ask our panelists those at the end of the program. If you do not want to do that through the YouTube channel, you can always email us at alumni@esf.edu, and we will answer those questions at the end as well, so we'll be able to pull them up into our session. So again, thank you everybody for joining me tonight, and I'd like to welcome our first guest, Jenny Lowenstein. So Jenny, hi, welcome.
Hello.
So Jenny is the Sustainability Program Manager at the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council, where she is in charge of developing a climate action plan for the Rochester region. So thank you, Jenny, for being here.
Of course.
Next, let me bring in Rich Centinella. So hopefully, we had some technical issues, but hopefully Rich can see us and hear us now. So since graduating from ESF, Rich has worked at EDSA, an international planning and landscape architecture firm. He began as part of the design staff and now serves as principal at the firm. So thank you for being with us here tonight, Rich. Our next alum, we welcome Ryan. Ryan has had a long passion for zoological design, which he said he blossomed during his off-campus experience in Berlin, Germany. So we're going to have to talk about that a little bit later. That sounds interesting. And he's had the opportunity to work for firms specializing in zoo habitat design and planning, and is working for as a landscape architect for CLR Design. So Ryan, thank you for joining us.
Yep, thank you. It's a pleasure.
And now we'll bring Andrew on. So Andrew is currently working as program manager at the Maine Audubon and in the Bringing Nature Home program, which seeks to increase biodiversity through native plantings. So that's very exciting. I don't know if you know, Andrew, we're a bee campus. We are a certified bee campus here at the college. So like I said, we have a good connection there. So I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight and for sharing your stories with us. We have a number of alumni joining us, as well as current students and prospective students, and maybe their parents. So I know that you all have a landscape architecture degree, but you all have very different professions that you're pursuing. So that's kind of what I want to get into. I know I introduced you and gave your job title, but that really doesn't tell much about what you do. So I'm going to start with Jenny. And I'm going to ask you to kind of talk about yourself a little bit more, maybe tell us when you graduated, what you studied here. I know some of you maybe your favorite classes, and kind of the path to where you got or what you're doing right now. So,
absolutely. So hello, everyone. My name is Jenny Lowenstein. I graduated with my bachelor's in landscape architecture in 2012. And as Debbie mentioned, I'm currently the Sustainability Program Manager at the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council in Rochester. The Planning Council is a really small organization that supports 188 municipalities in the Rochester region. And as Debbie mentioned, I'm currently writing a climate action plan for all of our municipalities and for the region as a whole as part of an Environmental Protection Agency grant. This climate action plan is really requiring a lot of community engagement and partnership, building with our communities, state partners, and other community groups. So it's been a really great opportunity just to understand what our greenhouse gas emissions are in the region and what sort of implementation action steps we can take to reduce our emissions. So really looking at a holistic view of what climate action means and how we can support our large communities and our small communities in the Rochester region. I think for me, my career path has been pretty winding to get to where I am today. I spent my off-campus semester in Lisbon, Portugal, and that was the first time I spent any time in a very large walkable city. And then I really started to think about just urban design and how things are formed, why cities are the way they are. And through a lot of moving around the country and working in a variety of planning capacities, I ended up in Rochester, New York during the pandemic. And while a lot of my career has been working with larger municipalities, for the last 4 years, have been working with very small communities, working with the city of Rochester down to communities of 300 people, trying to help them determine the best way to make their communities affordable, safe, equitable, and sustainable. So it's been, again, a really winding path to get here, but I get to think about why places are the way they are, how we enhance them, and how we help communities get to what their visions are of the future. And ESF is why I am here where I am. And it's been meandering, but very rewarding.
Thanks. All right, I'm going to ask you 2 follow-up questions.
Absolutely.
So you said you work with large communities and small communities. I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have a preference, and why?
Ooh, that's hard. So, I mean, I live in the city of Rochester, and I do really love working with the city of Rochester because, I live here. So the impacts we are making impact me as well. But I think small communities are really fun because their challenges are oftentimes the same, but the solutions have to be so catered to them. And you have to find climate advocates in these small communities, which can be really challenging, but the climate activists that are there are so passionate. So I'm going to have to say working with the small communities is probably my favorite.
All right. Didn't mean to put you on the spot. And then my other question is this the first climate action plan that Rochester has ever done?
So many of the counties have written climate action plans. Monroe County, for instance, actually just updated theirs, and that is available on their website. But this is the first regional climate action plan. So we're looking towards all of our counties for the climate action plans they have written, and some of our municipalities have written them, and just trying to combine it into something that the whole region can utilize, and also pulling from the goals that the state has as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to bring you on. Let's see. I'm going to bring on Andrew. So hi, Andrew. You have an interesting path as well. So I'm really interested in kind of learning about what you're doing right now, and then how you got there, because you've gone through a couple of different spots to get where you are today.
Yeah. So I graduated with a landscape architecture degree in 2013, and I'll start by just saying how I got to where I am today. Currently, I'm the Bring Nature Home manager for Maine Audubon. But while I was still in school, I started a gardening business back here in coastal Maine. This is where I'm from, where I was raised. So I came back during the summers, did that, and just fell in love with being outside and working with plants. And so I continued that throughout for about 5 years after undergrad. And then I wound up going back and taking some grad school classes in the Portland area for planning, because I was really missing doing more community-oriented work. And so I got an internship with the City of Portland Planning Department, which turned into a job, and did that for a number of years, which was really interesting. But I missed plants too much. And this position came up at Maine Audubon, which, so I'll tell you a bit more about this. It's the Bring Nature Home program was inspired by Doug Tallamy's book, Bring Nature Home, which was written a number of years ago now. But at its premise, it's about preserving and restoring Maine's natural biodiversity by planting native plants that support the widest array of wildlife possible. In the beginning, it started really just with a small plant sale as a small fundraiser. And that has ballooned into, we have a small nursery here on the property and that's one component of what I do. I manage the nursery and grow upwards of 10,000 plants a year that we both sell and distribute throughout Maine for various projects and for our retail operation. And so that's one component of the job, and really focusing on getting as many native plants out there and making them more accessible for the masses. And then in addition to that, we also have partnerships with a variety of municipalities and organizations across the state where we work on habitat restoration projects ranging from revitalizing vacant lots to enhancing riparian buffers and schoolyard habitat projects, which ties into the kind of the third core of my project, which is education and really getting out into the community, partnering with school districts on building curriculum around native plants. And so that's about it for the description of what I'm currently doing.
So do you see a lot of your community members coming in really getting interested in doing the native plant gardens? Is this kind of your education is reaching out and doing that?
It's been really fun to watch. I'd say even from when we graduated in 2013, it's just come so far. When I started out gardening, there just wasn't the same awareness, and that has just completely changed. And I think every single year, we are just seeing so many people become really engaged and passionate about this, and realizing how accessible it all is, and how we really can make a difference in the places where we live by starting to create habitat and prioritizing plants that provide that habitat.
Yeah, and I mean, I know this goes without saying, but every area has their own native plants. So I know for us at ESF, we have a whole website devoted to nurseries that sell native plants, so that the regular homeowner can kind of go on those websites, and I'm sure those are available all across the country. Does Maine do you guys have something like that through Audubon?
Like a directory?
Yeah.
There are directories out there, so there are more and more small native plant nurseries popping up all the time. So while we personally do it ourselves, we certainly partner with other growers on getting their plants out to the landscape as well.
Yeah, and I'm noticing even around here, there's more and more of those native plant nurseries, smaller ones popping up all over. So wherever you are, you can plant your own native garden and kind of bring it back for the plants and animals, insects that need that to thrive. So that's exciting. I love that. Well, thank you, Andrew. I'm gonna go to Ryan. Hi, Ryan. How are you? Oh, you're on mute still. So fun fact that Andrew just let me know, that Andrew and Ryan were actually roommates freshman year. So, and I didn't know that before I put this together. So that's kind of interesting. Now, Ryan, you have an interesting job from what I would never think of with a landscape architect. So can you tell me kind of, I know you said you spurred on during your study abroad in Berlin, but how did you actually get to where you are right now?
Yeah, so yeah, like Debbie mentioned, I graduated with Andrew in 2013. I think maybe many of you know, but maybe some of you don't, the fifth year program at ESF, you go study abroad. The whole point of that program is that the students kind of develop their own independent study topic, and then you go execute that in whatever city that you end up picking. So for me, that was Berlin. And Berlin has two world-class zoos there, for historical East Berlin, West Berlin reasons. I got to study both of those while I was doing my abroad trip, and came back and got to, present to the other students and faculty everything I learned about pedestrian experiences in zoos. And while my first job out of college was at a more kind of a global engineering firm, I was able to kind of leverage that experience and that study that I did abroad, and get the attention of a firm out in Seattle that does zoo exhibit design specifically. There's a few firms across the country that do focus on exactly that. And so that's where I was able to get my first experience in zoo design. During the pandemic, I transitioned to a more kind of traditional landscape architecture firm. Pandemic wasn't very friendly to zoos, and especially not new construction projects. But but I was lucky enough to get the attention of a separate zoo exhibit design firm, which is the one that I'm working for now, called CLR Design. And we work on zoos all over the country, occasionally international work. I'm reporting to you guys from St. Louis, Missouri right now, because I was actually on a construction site earlier today. So yeah, we're all over the country, and this firm, we work on projects from concept level all the way through construction and construction administration, and we even do some master planning work for zoos on a higher level too. So yeah, it's pretty incredible that my final year at ESF, just putting together a study has kind of led me down this path and to this career that I find really fun and rewarding. So it's been great.
So quick question, do you do an overall design of the zoo, or are you designing zoo habitats? What actually are you working on?
Yeah, so it's really up to the zoo, right? They'll come to us and say, we want to renovate this area. What can we do? How can we we want to keep the same animals here, but let's make the habitat better. Sometimes zoos expand and we're building brand new habitats for different animals. Sometimes the renovations are kind of a complete, just get rid of everything. A lot of the zoo exhibits that were built back in, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s are just not in line with what people expect and what the industry really wants in terms of, getting across the message that, animals are important and to be respected. And so, there's a lot of work in renovating old stuff, but also some zoos have the benefit of expanding or doing, brand new from scratch kind of habitat. So it's really up to the zoo and whatever projects they have in mind. They'll approach us with that, and we'll take on anything.
Do you have a specific project that you liked working on the best?
Yeah, well, I think when I was working at the firm in Seattle, they were called PJA. We worked on a sea lion habitat in Columbus. It's called Adventure Cove, and that included some massive sea lion exhibits. There was a big lighthouse, a lot of artificial rock work, and the complexity of it all was really incredible. And it's sort of right inside the front gate, so it's kind of a marquee habitat for the Columbus Zoo, and that one was really rewarding to work on.
That sounds like fun. I think we'll have to go to the Columbus Zoo now soon. So I'm going to bring you all back in. Oh, wait, nope. There we go. Okay. I think we lost Rich. He was having some difficulties with his internet connection. So if he tries to get back on, we'll try and bring him back in again. But for the three of you, I guess, why did you choose ESF over some of the other schools that you may have applied to? What was it about ESF that kind of brought you here? So I'm going to have Andrew go first this time.
I think I was kind of strange in high school. I knew pretty early on that I wanted to study landscape architecture. And Maine doesn't have a program. Massachusetts did, but I have more family connections in the upstate New York area. I spent my summers going to the Adirondacks, and then coincidentally, kind of my best friend from home wound up going to SU. So it just a perfect storm of scenarios all coming together that made it a pretty easy choice. And the real thing, the cherry on top that really made me want to go and pick it over, say, UMass, which would have been closer, was the study abroad program. Growing up in Maine, I hadn't had a chance to get outside of the country that much, and I was just really, really excited about that opportunity of the program.
So where did you do your study abroad?
Amsterdam.
What was your project?
It was awesome. And that ties into another thing of definitely one of my favorite classes. Ryan touched on this, was just the independent study that we had to design the year before. And I designed a project around wayfinding and urban navigation from a planning perspective. So, which meant I could just walk and bike just about every single street in the historic part of Amsterdam. and it was amazing. I think, academics aside, it was one of the most profound experiences I've ever had that allowed me to really figure out who I was. So it was a phenomenal program.
Yeah, definitely an integral part of our program here. So, all right, we're going to go back to Ryan. So,
Yeah, not to sound like a broken record, but yeah, the study abroad program was super appealing to me too. Yeah, I agree. I hadn't traveled out of the country really at all when I was going through high school, and that seemed like a really exciting way to sort of cap off the collegiate experience. Another big thing for me was I had played ice hockey my entire life all the way up through high school, and Syracuse University actually had a really great club hockey team, and I was able to speak with the coach and some of the players there, and I knew I wanted that to be part of my college experience as well. So the opportunity to join that club and attend ESF, get the landscape architecture education that I was seeking, but also be a part of that club and get that experience as well was a major factor for me in selecting ESF.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big benefits of being at ESF is you do have SU right next door, and you have all of those clubs and organizations that you can be a part of, and then they come over and be a part of ours. So it's nice to have that crossover between the two schools, but still be on a small ESF campus.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So Jenny, how about you? What led you to ESF over any other school?
I applied to a number of other programs other schools that had landscape architecture programs, and all the schools were huge. ESF is just a small school, small class sizes, and you really get to know your professors, the students there, and it just felt like a really comfortable environment to learn. So that was really, really appealing to me. And again, the off-campus semester was the ability to get outside of your comfort zone, design an independent study, and be able just to explore the world around you and just get a better perspective on what your options were was, I mean, again, profound. I think we've all really touched on how much it's impacted our careers, and being able to do that was hugely important to me and one of the main reasons why I picked ESF. I also knew about ESF really early on. Both my parents went to ESF, so it was definitely a school I was always knew I was going to at least be looking at, but it just felt like the right fit.
Yeah. Well, we love that legacy too. Both of your parents went here. We love that. Yes. I just saw them the other month. So what did you learn at ESF that you think was most useful in your career?
Would you like me to?
Yep, I'm going to go with you. I'm still on you.
So one of the things that I think is very unique about ESF is that a number of the classes are called, English and the environment, or, such and such in the environment. So I think, all of the students on a broad level are critically thinking about the environment. And so I think those critical thinking skills about what our impact is on the environment, how we could mitigate those impacts is so hugely important. And it's just something that is put into every one of the classes that we took, everything from English to math to our core landscape architecture classes. And I think one of the other things is that landscape architecture is a very detail-oriented profession, whereas what I do now, it's definitely more big picture. So I think thinking about the details, because of the landscape architecture program, I think about the details a lot more than some other planners do or some of my coworkers do. And I think that has been really important. It helps making decisions for communities a little bit more grounded in reality. And I think it really helps propel our mission forward of, making more equitable and sustainable places.
I love that. Thank you. All right, Ryan, we're going to go to you next. How about you? What was at ESF that you found most useful in your career?
Yeah, I think ESF did a great job teaching, a lot of the landscape architecture job specific skills that I use today, like, grading and layout plans and graphics and all that. But one thing that I think was really valuable was going through the rigors of studio, learning how to kind of balance multiple tasks and manage time. Is still really beneficial to me today, and I think I use those skills on every project that we work on, regardless. And I think, with ice hockey and with the other social engagements that we had back then, and going through studio, like, you really had to figure out, how to get things done, how to do it efficiently, how to communicate when things weren't necessarily going on task the way that you want them to. I think because of the challenge, I think that set me up well to kind of start to understand how important that is, from a young age. I think, yeah, that's invaluable to the work that I do today, because it happens fast, and if you're not prepared to manage it appropriately, it's not easy.
Many hours spent in that studio, huh?
That's right.
Definitely. All right, thanks. Andrew, anything you can really think about that kind of helped you out in your career from when you were here at ESF?
Yeah, so just building off what's already been said, I think in the studio environment, which is basically every Monday, Wednesday, Friday afternoon, pretty regular intervals, when you're working on a project, you'll do pinups and you'll have critiques. And it really taught me how to receive feedback and how to listen to it and use it in ways that you can really grow. I think it really gave me, thick skin in a way, but also just the ability to embrace the feedback, and not just embrace it, but crave it and know how beneficial it is all along the way. And then I think just understanding from pretty early age how important it is to surround yourself with people who share similar passions. And at ESF, that's a passion for the environment.
Yeah, I think that's one thing a lot of our alumni find, or students find when they come here, even just for a visit. It's kind of like, not everybody has the same opinion, but they all have the same passion. So everybody is very much, I want to save the world. So I think that goes across all of our majors. So I think that's what's really nice, kind of that community feeling for our students. So this is my favorite question they ask, because usually people get light up on this one. So what do you love about your job?
Yeah, me? So many things. Just having an intimate connection with the natural world, working directly with plants, from sowing the seeds in the winter to dividing and transplanting them in the spring, and throughout the whole process, and growing them until they go to a new home. That's just really a passion for me. But I guess it's really, I got to work directly with plants when I gardened, but what I love about this is the blend of working with plants and people, because I also crave working with people on community-oriented projects. The other thing about this job that I love is seasonality, and I definitely am someone that likes to have changes in my job throughout the year, so it always feels fresh. And then I guess the only other thing would be just being exposed to a really cool network of people.
You have so many things that you love about your job. I love that. All right, Jenny, how about you? What is it that you love about your job?
Oh, lots of things. I have a poster in my office that says, "Every day is your chance to make the city a little better." And I think that's just like a really good mantra. Not only a good mantra, but it really does feel like I get to do that every day. Like every day I have an opportunity to support communities, engage with people who are doing this boots on the ground work. I get to work with people on both sides of the political aisle. I get to work with people who are just trying to make their communities a better place to live for the people that are there, and thinking about how they attract more people to live there. So it's very rewarding. And even though sometimes it feels like we're moving the needle so little, but those small incremental changes can make the world of a difference for a community, and ultimately are going to just support them in their sustainability goals, the state's sustainability goals. So we're moving the needle just a little bit every day, but just that little bit helps just promote just a better, more equitable and sustainable place for communities and for people to live. I could talk about my job all day, but I do really love working for like a small governmental organization, and it's very rewarding.
I love that. I think I have to get that poster too now. Everything would be good, much better if we could make the world a better place just a little bit every day.
Yes.
I agree. Okay. I'm going to lose track of who I haven't talked to yet. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I also love a lot about this job. I love the creativity and the sort of unique challenges that this job provides. Designing a habitat, obviously the animals are always first and foremost, and it has to engage the animal and help them promote healthy behaviors. But you also have keepers that are involved that have to safely get in and out of the habitat and clean it. You have interpretation and education that goes involved with it as well. You're also using a lot of like unique, maybe sort of atypical materials that a lot of landscape architects might not be familiar with. Some of it's sculptural, some of it has to hold back the weight of a rhinoceros, which these are just weird challenges that nothing is super repeatable in what we do, and zoos are always looking for something that's going to kind of like blow your mind or something that you've never seen before. So the clients are always on board with bigger, more creative, more interesting, unique things, and that challenge and figuring out how to solve that is one major thing that I love about this job. I also love engaging with the animal staff. I think if anybody knows any zookeepers out there, they're some of the most passionate people out there, and I think sitting down with them and learning about the animals and learning about their habits and learning about what the animal staff has to do in order to help these animals and keep them healthy and thriving is really, really cool. And it's super rewarding to hear those folks and the passion that they have. And it's really infectious. So I think it helps motivate us to work with them and deliver really great projects for the animals. And I also love, I think probably the last thing I'll touch on is how sort of visible the work is. Zoos are heavily attended. There's hundreds of millions of people every year that go to zoos, and the fact that I get to work on a project that people will be passing through or looking or engaging with every day all year is something that I think is really, really cool. And hopefully, in doing so, hopefully, some young folks out there develop a passion for wild animals and for conservation and learn a thing or two when they're at some of the exhibits that I work on, and hopefully that helps foster kind of the next generation of conservationists and ESF students and global thinkers that I think our world needs. So yeah, it's also a lot, but yeah, hopefully.
You never know where the inspiration will come from for the next generation of environmental people. So it could be that new Columbus Zoo that they're going to see, that the sea lions, and maybe it sparks an interest. So,
yep.
All right, I'm going to bring you all back on because I know you've all talked a little bit about the study abroad program, so which is, I know, a very big portion of the degree requirements. But is there anything else that you loved just kind of being a part of on the campus? And then something that maybe you wished you did, but you didn't quite step out of your comfort zone to get there. So I'm going to start with Andrew on this one.
Yeah. So I got really into running when I was there, but when I started at ESF, we didn't have a team. Now we have a really good team, apparently. But there was a club at Syracuse called the Jackalopes Running Club, and that was a blast, and got to meet a lot of really, really great people that way. But and otherwise, and so this cross country team started about halfway through. I think would have loved to have done that, but so I definitely encourage folks to embrace the extracurriculars if they have the chance.
And I think it's nice to get out of your own area. So do something outside of landscape architecture, because I know there's a lot of things that you can do within the program, but kind of something that's way out, like running, not connected. So you are
Totally.
meeting an entirely different group of people. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's exciting. Yeah. All right, Ryan, I'm going to go to you next.
Yeah, I've mentioned it before, but being a part of the hockey team was incredible for me. It's one of my lifelong passions, and to do that and to meet those people, I've made lifelong friends doing that. So that's an easy first one that I think of. I honestly think that it's not really a club, but being a part of the studio environment was something that I liked being a part of. I think it's a sort of thing that develops some, kind of camaraderie amongst your students. If there's late nights or tough reviews, I think that sort of galvanizes everybody. And I don't know if there's that. I'm not sure if that's necessarily that same sense of community in the other majors that are on campus. I think it's a really unique experience, and you definitely build relationships quickly when you're all kind of going through that together. And I think that was a cool thing to be a part of. Something that I kind of wish I was more a part of are some of the other ESF kind of specific outdoorsy clubs that were offered. I think there's, fly fishing clubs and other like hiking and camping clubs. And I think to be able to join that and kind of learn some of those skills from the students who have been doing that for their whole life, and to develop those skills and be able to have them, now as an adult, would have been really, really cool. But yeah, other than that, I think it was a great experience.
So I think we have over 50 clubs and orgs on campus now, like that has really boomed. And they're always looking for alumni to join them. So you can still join a club on campus.
Okay.
You can fish in the middle
That's great.
between, Rochester and Syracuse. Maybe we can make that happen for you still, Ryan. Never
Yeah, I
give
love
up.
that. That's great. I'm looking into that.
So Jenny, how about you? What was your big highlight on campus? What did you love? And then kind of what did you wish you were a part of?
So it sounds like all three of us were on some sort of sports team while we were at ESF. I was actually on the club soccer team while I was at ESF, and that was a really great experience. I never thought I was going to be able to play soccer in college. That was not something I had considered doing, but it was a really great opportunity to continue playing a sport I had been playing since I was like 8. So I really loved that opportunity. I believe the team is now D3. I know they're doing really, really well, which is really exciting to follow. And I'm really proud of the program that has continued at ESF. I was also an orientation leader at ESF. I loved the experience of becoming friends and meeting other students that I probably would have never interacted with through that program. Orientation leaders are overwhelmingly enthusiastic about the school and about life. And I think that group of people was so friendly, and the experience to be around them, it was kind of the highlight of the fall semester. And just, yeah, it was a really highlight of the fall semester. And I met lifelong friends through that program. I do wish that I had engaged with like SU students or the SU clubs that are available more. I think I definitely stayed safe close to the nest on ESF's campus, but SU has also so much to offer. And I do wish that I had maybe just dipped my toes into some of the options that they had and were available to ESF students.
Yeah, I agree. Well, sometimes it's hard because there is so much.
It's a little overwhelming, but they have so much to offer.
Yeah, start slow, work your way into it. So I'm excited. I think we have Rich back. So we're going to try and bring Rich back on and kind of chat with you a little bit, and then we'll get back to everybody. So, Rich, I'm going to make you front and center. Hopefully this will work this time. So I think most importantly, I wanted to try and chat with you about your path, kind of how you got where you are today, and some of the things at ESF that helped you out along your way.
Yeah, well, thank you, Debbie. Hello, everyone. Appreciate your time today. I grew up in upstate central New York, about an hour away from Syracuse, and my family was in the landscape construction business, and so I got to meet a lot of landscape architects when I was working for my family's business, and I thought it'd be something I'd want to do. Syracuse has a great program. It's close to home. I ended up going to college a little bit late and graduating when I was in my late 20s, but it offered everything I really needed to pursue my passion. And I had known about landscape architects through interacting with them in the family business, and Syracuse really took that to another level. I graduated in 1985 and immediately took a job at EDSA. Where I ended up becoming a principal, and I am probably the oldest full-time principal in the firm right now. Our firm was founded in 1960, so it's been around a long, long time. And our landscape architecture business and planning business is in private practice. We work around the world. 70% of our work is overseas. We have 8 offices in 7 in the U.S. and 1 in Shanghai, China, and we have about 250 employees. So I've been with the firm almost 40 years since my graduation. So I've had a lot of fun, and it's growing up in Central New York. It's what I get to do in my profession is something that you only dream about. So I've been very happy with my choices, with what I wanted to pursue, and then how it turned out.
So I asked everybody else what they love about their job, but I've noticed you've worked on projects in Tuscany, Italy, Dubai, right near our own backyard at the Turning Stone, but also the Bahamas. So do you have a favorite project that you worked on?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say the project in Tuscany, Italy is probably my favorite. It was a great client. It was a great team that worked all together to really resurrect and renovate a 4,000-acre property. And it's just a beautiful place to work. But I think more important than that, we got to work with a client and a design team and a construction team that was full of respect for one another, helped one another. It was a true team effort. We enjoyed everything that we did on the project for 4 or 5 years. We had my project manager on that project lived on site for a year during construction, ended up staying in Italy. He liked it that much. It's just, obviously it's my favorite. My heritage is part Italian, so it was great to get to the country where my grandparents came from. And I mean, that's probably one of the favorite things about my job is I get to travel around the world. And ESF really prepared me for that with their off-campus program in landscape architecture. I studied in the south of France for 4 months before I graduated and joined EDSA. And I don't think I had been out of the Northeast. Maybe I had a trip to Florida before that. It was probably my off-campus experience in 1984 was my first time on an airplane. I know it's hard to believe, but it was. And just that experience in Europe for 4 months, it gives you a different perspective on on everything in life, of people. You know, sometimes life in a small city can be insulating, but this really sort of opened my eyes. And by coincidence, I joined a firm that had projects all over the world, and that was really just a coincidence. And so a couple of the principals at EDSA at the time were Syracuse graduates or ESF graduates, and they recruited, and I was there. I was lucky. They gave me a chance, and I've been there 40 years. So yeah, it all sort of came together, that off-campus program, traveling, and then coming to a firm where I ended up traveling. And then I was asked to come back a number of years ago for the 50th anniversary of the off-campus program and give a lecture, the George Earl lecture. And, you know, George started that program, and it was great to be there on the 50th anniversary of the program and talk to the students about travel and about what you learn when you experience other cultures and learn about history. And yeah, it was just a great experience.
I'm going to bring it all back up because I'm going to tell you all at the same time. You can't answer the off-campus program. So my question is, what is your favorite class? What was your favorite class? And you can't say the off-campus program at ESF. Doesn't even have to be in landscape architecture class. It can be whatever one you would like. So I'm going to start with Jenny. I'm going to leave you all up here, so you're all going to be on.
So I believe it was my junior year. Emmanuel Carter taught a planning class. I believe it was at 8:30 in the morning, which was a really rough time to take a class, but it was my favorite class. And I really think it started to get my wheels spinning about planning. And really, I think between that and the off-campus experience, I recognized that I probably would not be pursuing a career in the most traditional landscape architecture sense. But I really loved his class. I loved his teaching style. He taught in a way that kept me awake at 8:30, but really made me think about, you know, what it was I may want to do post college, and again, really opened my eyes to like what planning could be.
Keeping you awake at 8:30 is very important, though. Especially as a junior. By then, people are like, no, I'm going to take an 11 o'clock class. Andrew, how about you?
Yeah, a few different classes. Definitely echo what Jenny said about Emmanuel Carter's planning class. That was awesome. Definitely inspired me to do the work in planning that I did prior to working for Maine Audubon. And otherwise, took an environmental writing class that was really, really lovely. A coastal geology elective through Syracuse was super cool. Really, really interesting, and has proved really, really helpful, especially with you know, these storms and climate change along the coast of Maine that we're seeing. Just allows you to understand it at such a deeper level. And then, of course, plant identification.
How'd you do on your dendro tests? Did you have to take dendro or no?
No.
No, you didn't have to do. Okay, so you had to do the plant identification. You guys don't have to do the tree one. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it was like the landscape architecture specific plant identification.
There's a lot of them, I'm sure. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I think after everybody gets back from abroad, we all had a few options for a thematic studio to take your last semester, 5th year. I don't remember exactly what all of the other options were, but I remember having a hard time picking because it sounded like there were some cool options. But the one that I did do was called community-based design. And that class kind of really revolved around like, how do you engage a community? How do you get stakeholder input? How do you plan meetings where people can come, and what activities can you do during meetings to get community input in your design? And obviously we know that that's huge. Community has to be involved in order for a project to take root in that particular community. And I think that was another one that kind of helped give some life skills that that I still use every day in meetings with, with zoo, with, clients and animal staff and even the higher ups at the zoo and just being able to kind of engage your stakeholders. I thought that was a really cool project and we even had a real project in, I think it was Onondaga Park, where we actually had community meetings and our final projects were kind of packaged up and given to an actual LA firm. And to be able to have that impact on the community in college and develop those skills at the same time, I thought was pretty awesome. And it was a good way to kind of wrap up my last semester at ESF. So.
Yeah, it's nice to have that like hands-on project work.
Yeah, real world design.
Yeah, great. Rich, how about you? What's your favorite class that you can remember?
Be careful.
No.
I'm sure I graduated before some of our other guests were born, but I did. George Earl was teaching an art history class when I was in school at ESF, and back then ESF was a upper division program, so you came in with 2 years experience, a 2-year degree, and did 3 years design. I believe it's different now, but that art history class was basically George Earl's slideshow of his world travels and off-campus program travels, and all the slides related to some principle within planning, urban planning, landscape architecture, community planning. But it was a travel log of the world. It was amazing. And the book that you had to read, that wasn't appealing. It was a very thick book on art history, but it was a great class. And then if I could add a second class, at ESF, we were allowed to take electives over at Syracuse University. So I ended up taking a environmental law class. And I really enjoyed the class, but I didn't do very well in it. So that brought my GPA down a little bit. But it was a great class, and it sort of balanced some of the design thinking that we were going through at ESF at the time with some environmental thought and related to law. So that was again, the opportunities that being on that campus, because being part of the Syracuse campus was something unique. No program in the country really offered that, and it was a great opportunity. So those two classes.
All right, great. So I'm going to remind everybody that you can ask questions either in the comments on YouTube, or you can email us at alumni@esf.edu. So I'm going to finish up with one last question for all of you. And I'm going to let Rich go first. So do you have any advice for students who are either in the program now or possibly considering coming to ESF to study landscape architecture? And maybe something you wish you knew before you started?
Yeah, so I joined, I started school, when I went to school, there was no laptop computers, there was no iPhones, there was no internet. Research was, it was almost impossible compared to today. So if I feel if I knew more about the firms that were out there, I was lucky. I had exposures to some of the landscape architecture firms in Syracuse and New York City because of the work my family did on the construction side and working with some landscape architects, but it was a very small world. But get out there, do some research. All the firms have great websites. There's a lot of landscape architects in public service as well. Get onto the U.S. Forest Service website, the U.S. Parks Service website. Understand the opportunities for landscape architects. There's all the municipalities usually have landscape architects in their planning departments. So there's a broad range of opportunities for your profession once you graduate. Get out there, do some research, and I think it'll get you more excited about what landscape architecture is and what it can do for communities, and for the future. I mean, it's a great profession. So get out there, do your research, and have a little bit of fun, and find out more about what it's all about and what the applications are. With all the tools, technology we have, you have that opportunity that some of us old guys didn't have. So
we won't say that. No, and I think you have a very good point, which is kind of why I love that you guys all went different paths in your careers. That I think sometimes students come in as freshmen and have a very limited view of what landscape architecture is. And that when they get here, they're slowly but surely broadening that view. But if they can do a little bit of research beforehand, it may even help a little bit more. So thanks for that. Jenny, I'm going to go to you. Do you have any words of wisdom to share with our students or prospective students?
Actually, my advice is very similar to Rich's. It's just keeping an open mind. There are so many options to how to apply your landscape architecture degree. Landscape architecture is so much of an umbrella, and there's so many ways to pursue it. You have to think about the world around us is planned and designed, everything from parks to parking lots. And there's so many different ways to apply a landscape architecture degree. There's so many allied professions out there. And I think there's not one single path for a landscape architect. And I think we're a really great panel to kind of prove that. But yeah, my advice is very similar to Rich's, keep an open mind, do your research. And I think this degree is applicable to a lot of different scenarios and job titles.
Thank you. So I know the last person's going to hate me for making them last because everybody else has all the good advice, but I think you both will do well with this. So I'm going to have Andrew go next.
Yeah. So I think we've all talked about how much we love the abroad program, and it's kind of the other side of it that we don't talk about, which, it's 5 years. So it's a long program, and every summer. Oh, really?
Yep. We've moved to a 4-year program.
Oh, all right. Well, wonderful. Now it's the perfect program.
Yep. And they still have to study abroad.
Okay. Well, so anyways, 4 years still a long time, and I would coming from Maine, it was quite a ways away from me. So I wanted to go home in the summer. I missed home, and Maine on the coast isn't a bad place to be in the summertime. So that's how I got into gardening. But if sometimes I daydream and think if I were to do it differently, I do think utilizing your summers while you're in the program to intern and work with a variety of different firms or directions that you're potentially interested in could be really, really helpful. I'm thinking back to studio, kids who were interning in the city throughout the summer would come back and just have a whole toolkit of digital files, and they'd have a leg up on everyone. So it's definitely helpful, and I do think it's a really wonderful way to bolster your skill set, not having done it myself.
Yeah, and a lot of our alumni volunteer for those, kind of even just job shadowing, just so the students can get an idea of what it would be like working in that position. So I think you're right. Can reach out to people either at firms that you want to be connected with, or reach out to people that you feel like can help you out along the way. So we're always here for that. So Ryan, I didn't mean to leave you for last, but what are your words of wisdom?
Yeah, I had a couple that came to mind. I think one of them, kind of specifically for LA students in general, is stick with some of the classes that might be tough. I think you never know what's going to you never know where your career is going to head, and maybe some of those classes are the ones that you end up falling back on the most. And I know for me, that was true of the grading and drainage class. I remember that being super frustrating in school and having a hard time with it. And I was hoping I just never had to do that my entire career. But now today, it's something that I use, those skills I use every single day. And it's something that makes me particularly valuable to our company. And, I'm glad that I stuck with it and that I was able to kind of get the assistance that I needed at the time. And now it benefits me quite a lot. And I think kind of on a bigger scale picture just from the college experience in general. Just soak it all in. If you're ever thinking like, should I take that class? Should I join that club? Should I, go on this trip? More often than not, the answer should be yes. And I think, you definitely won't regret that. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you to all of you for being with me tonight. I didn't get any questions, so you guys are just that good. You answered all of the questions that I ever had about landscape architecture. But in case anybody does have questions for any of our panelists, you can always email us at alumni@esf.edu. I think I have a little banner that I can put up here. So we can always pass along questions, or we can help you with anything that you might have questions about. So again, thank you everybody for joining us tonight on In the Loop. We're going to sign off now, and we will see you next time. Thank you everybody, and take care.